Welcome to Critical Issues, Alternative Views. I'm Ron Kramer, Professor of Sociology at Western Michigan University, and I serve as the host of our program. And with me today are our two regulars. On my left is Don Cooney from the School of Social Work at Western Michigan University. And Don also serves as the Kalamazoo City Commissioner. And on my right is Regena Nelson from the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Educational Studies at Western Michigan University. And we've been doing a number of our shows over the past couple months focusing on the 2024 election. But it's been such an uneventful and boring election season, I don't know what we have to even talk about. Yeah, okay. So lots of things going on, right? Anything but uneventful and boring so far. Wow. And the biggest surprise, of course, was I don't know if it was a surprise, but the biggest story is Joe Biden dropping out and Kamala Harris now running. And so I just want to start by getting each of your reactions to that particular event. Did you think President Biden was going to drop out? And did you think that Kamala Harris would slide in so smoothly, it seems to me, into the slot as the Democratic, potential Democratic nominee? So, Regena, let's start with you. What do you?
Sure.
What was your take on the whole thing?
So I was in it, for the long haul with Biden if he stayed in, and so all signs were pointing that way. He was still talking up until a couple days before he went into COVID isolation, doing interviews that I'm staying, no one's replacing me, I can do this, and so I thought, okay, I guess we just need to prepare for that. But it was a happy surprise to see that he gave it some thought and stepped down because he wanted to do what was best for the country. And I love the speech that he gave when he, after he made the announcement and shared that this is not about me, this is about a larger issue. And so doing so will give him the chance to have the legacy that he wants to have and that he earned. So I'm very supportive of this and overjoyed of the endorsement of Kamala Harris.
Don?
Yeah. I had for a long time, I was backing him because I liked a lot of the things he did, but I was really angry about Gaza, and but I figured that we would still have a better chance dealing with Gaza with him in there, but I was hoping that he would drop out, and he did the right thing. I think it would have been very difficult for him to win if he stayed in. It was not looking good at all, and it's awful tough for him to give up that kind of power, but he did it with class, and I'm glad he did it. I was surprised that Kamala Harris moved in so quick and got such backing. I think it would have been, I think she's going to be a good candidate. I'm in her corner. I think it would have been interesting and better if there was some kind of a build-up to that, like a discussion of some debates among candidates. But there was so little time, and she was a logical candidate, and I think she's an excellent candidate, and so I think she'll do well. So I think we ended up on our feet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was on vacation at the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and I'd come up from the beach to the big house where all the family was staying, and all of a sudden on my phone started blowing up with the news that, and I guess I have to confess I was surprised, because even though I was hoping that Biden would see that the best thing for the country was for him to step down, it didn't seem like he was going to do that. And so then, but it was kind of a depressing scenario because he had been struggling so badly after that debate. The last time we taped a show was the day right after the debate, the infamous debate, and we really didn't have much of a chance to process it that day. But that disastrous performance just brought back all the concerns about his age and his ability to manage a tough campaign and then another 4 years in office. And the Republicans were definitely taking advantage of that. And it was very unfair. It was extremely unfair because all the attention was being focused on Biden and his debate performance and his ability to be the next president, to be president again, and none on Donald Trump, who is far, far worse in many ways in terms of cognitive ability and his, astounding ignorance of just about any real issues.
Right.
And committing gaffe after gaffe after gaffe on the campaign trail, and yet that never gets any attention. It's just so unfair. It was all focused on Biden. Hey, look at Biden, he's old and he just made a gaffe. Well, Trump is old also and showing signs of cognitive decline, and he makes a lot of gaffes, but somehow that didn't get the same kind of press. So with Biden stepping down, that kind of took that issue away, and now with Kamala Harris, we have a much younger, sharper, more focused candidate on the trail. And of course, Donald Trump doesn't want to have anything to do with debating her. He wanted to debate Biden, but man, oh man, he does not want to. He's already backed out. He's scared. He's absolutely scared. He would be slaughtered if he got up on a debate stage with somebody who was sharp like her, a former prosecutor, an attorney general, somebody who has facts and figures at her command. And Biden had those, but he stumbled to bring them out, right? And Kamala wouldn't have that problem. She would be able to respond immediately to the lies. And that's all he did the previous debate. All the attention was on Biden's performance and not Trump's lies.
Right.
I mean, he told lie after lie after lie during the debate.
True.
And yet there was no attention paid to that. What's the mainstream media doing? They're not doing their job. It's not an equal coverage. It's not even a balanced coverage, you know. But nonetheless, Trump has already said, no, I don't want to have anything to do with debating her. And of course, he's coming up with all kinds of phony excuses to avoid that. But I thought the biggest surprise for me then was, okay, Biden has dropped out. That's good. Now what are we going to do? How are we going to move forward?
Yeah.
And I was amazed at how quickly the support mobilized for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
How much money she was, what did she raise? Over $200 million in 1 week, or just a little over a week?
Yes.
And the biggest thing I think that Kamala Harris running has restored hope to Democrats and to people who do not like Trump, whether they're Republican or independent. And they didn't have that hope, and they were in despair. They were wallowing in their despair. I probably put myself in that category, wallowing in despair. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, the veil has been lifted. There's hope once again. This could still happen. We can still defeat Trump. I mean, the idea of another Trump presidency is just such a nightmarish scenario. And, you know, I think it's given us all nightmares. I know I've been having nightmares about a second Trump presidency. But all of a sudden now, where there seemed to be no hope, now there was hope.
Exactly.
And it seemed like people were rallying. It was almost like a kind of a social movement, actually. How quickly people rallied. I think they sensed, okay, now's our chance. We can win this, but to win it, we've got to get behind Kamala. We've got to put aside other differences. There's still plenty of differences within the Democratic Party. They could have been debated and exposed in a primary season with debates, but we didn't have an opportunity to do that because Biden was, you know, the sitting president, and the nomination was his, and there was no primary season to be had. But nonetheless, I think people are putting aside those differences and saying, this is our opportunity. We're going to rally. There's now hope. And let's put the money and the effort and the enthusiasm behind this particular candidate.
So just as an example of what you're talking about, just sort of figures this morning that in July, she raised $310 million, twice what Trump raised in July.
310.
310 for the month.
For the month?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
And the local Democratic Party. I went out knocking door to door for her last week, and they knocked on 1,000 doors last week. And a lot of the people I knocked on a Saturday afternoon weren't home, but the people that were home were enthusiastic. And they're giving out her signs like can't keep them there. They're just going out the door. There's so much enthusiasm now. There's so much energy, especially among young people, and I think it's great.
Right. Yeah, the grassroots support.
Right.
That's what we're seeing. So there were these Zoom calls, right? So first was the black women that got on, Women Who Win. They mobilized and they raised a lot of money. The next thing you heard a couple of days later, there was a white woman Zoom call and they raised more money. Then you heard that there was a black man Zoom call, same, and even a white man Zoom call.
Dudes.
Yeah, white
White
dudes. Exactly. They all said, I mean, this is getting so much attention and so much support, and it's the same. Now when she goes out at her rallies, you see everybody there supporting her. So this is exciting. I understand.
Yes, yes.
She held a rally in Atlanta last week.
Yeah.
10,000 people showed up. And it was just the enthusiasm, it was so great there. The energy was so high. There were several performers who contributed to the festivities, and it just was an amazing kind of rally. And so if that's going to keep happening, then I think there is a chance.
Yeah, it's not a slam dunk. By any means. I mean, the people that are showing up at the Trump rallies, there's tons of them.
Right.
And they come 10, 12 hours ahead of time. So he's a formidable opponent because there's so many people in his corner. But she's really changing things, and things are moving, and the polls are showing how she's made a huge difference. So it's going to be to the end.
Right.
What I think that Kamala Harris brings is an ability to reach out to those Republicans who do not like Donald Trump, who think that they've lost their party, that the MAGA movement has gone completely overboard and has drowned out or pushed aside the more traditional Republican Party operatives and concerns and ideology even, and they're distressed about that, and so they're not going to vote for Trump, but they weren't going to vote for Biden either.
Right.
I think.
Right.
But now I think with Kamala Harris, I think there's a new energy there, and I think there's an opportunity for her to reach out to that constituency, and I think it's more sizable than people think. I think Trump has brought a lot of new people in with his movement, but I think a lot of the more traditional Republicans have felt left out.
Absolutely.
And I think they can be brought in. The other big group I think that she can appeal to are the independents. And we always know that the independents they're not affiliated with either party, and they can go different ways depending upon the particular election. And I think she has the ability now to reach out to them. I don't think they were being mobilized in support of Joe Biden, right?
Right.
That's right.
No, and I kept thinking, those are the people that win this election, right? These are some of the suburban moms who don't like Donald Trump but weren't being motivated to vote for Joe Biden, but they might be motivated to vote for Kamala Harris now.
That's right.
And there are other independents, again, who don't like Trump, don't like what Trump stands for, but again, weren't being pulled in. Biden was not going to bring them in,
right.
Unfortunately. And that's why Biden finally decided he had to step down. I think the people inside said to him, sir, we need to attract these voters. You're not going to be able to pull them in, but Kamala Harris probably could. So for the good of the party, the good of the country, I think you need to really seriously think about stepping aside so we can mobilize in a different way to reach those voters.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening, because you've seen some changes in the polls already,
Yep. Right.
right? Some pretty big shifts already in a short. I mean, it's only been a little over a week, right? And already we see some shifts going on in the polls in battleground states, and so. And I think what that is are those disaffected Republicans and those independent voters who needed a reason to go for the Democratic ticket this time. And if she can continue to reach out to those constituencies, I think that gives her a real fighting chance in the election.
Very much so, yes. And the black community is just really in her corner, and that was important because the black community wasn't all that enthusiastic at all. So I think that's a big difference. I think it's going to be interesting about the vice presidential choice. I just wonder. I wonder if Kelly from Arizona, he would bring a lot to the ticket, and Arizona is an important state.
Right.
He's got a lot of experience. He's got military background, which appeals to a lot of people. Right. He's big on gun violence. He understands that issue. I think that might be a real wise choice for her. I think he's pretty popular.
So is that what you're betting on? Come on, put you on the spot. Make a prediction. It'll be captured
I'll pick
forever.
Kelly.
You think she's going to go for Kelly?
I think it's between.
So we can divide this. Who do you think is best, and who do you think she'll actually pick?
Okay.
I like that. Yeah.
Different candidates have different qualities.
Right.
The governor of Kentucky, what's his name?
Andy Beshear.
Beshear.
Yes.
He brings youth, enthusiasm. He's been able to appeal to different groups.
A Democrat who's won election in a red state, Kentucky, several times now.
Yes. Shapiro is a very popular governor of Pennsylvania, which is a must-win state. I know that he just had an interview with their people this past week. He's a strong candidate. I think it's between those three. My judgment is. I'm picking Kelly. I think he would overall be the best candidate, and I think she will pick him.
Okay.
That's my choice.
Okay. Regina,
I know. I was similar to you. You know, I was on the Kelly train, very excited. I am still, but as I keep hearing more and more buzz about Shapiro, I don't know. And they have that prior relationship. Like, they know each other pretty well, so I don't know how much that plays into it. And I could go either way, but I'm leaning towards Kelly too. And there have been even some things about, you think about who they bring into the White House with them. Gabby Gifford's presence in the White House. What kind of message would that send to the United States? I mean, for all of us to see that.
Yes.
So that's very inspiring and hopeful that we all, inclusivity, everybody belongs. So yeah, I would love to see that, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's a toss-up between those two. We'll see how she decides. And people say it will be her decision, that she is the type of person, she won't just let them tell her and advise her. In the end, it's going to be her decision, what she chooses. So we'll see.
Well, I know what my grandsons would say. Kelly's an astronaut. So
I know.
my grandsons would go for the astronaut for sure. So Beshear, the governor of Kentucky that you mentioned, he has been very strong on the trail, attacking J.D. Vance, the Republican nominee, which I want to come back and talk about a little bit, and Trump. So Beshear has stepped up, and I think he's done a really good job. And the other person that I'm thinking about, and maybe even leaning toward a bit, is the governor of Minnesota, Walz. He's been very, very effective.
He's strong.
He has very good communication skills.
Yes.
Pete Buttigieg is also in the conversation.
Yes.
But I don't think she'll go for Buttigieg.
No.
So I think we can cross him, even though he's probably the most effective person in the Biden administration on TV. I mean, Pete Buttigieg can go on Fox and go into the lion's den, so to speak, and he's very effective.
He is.
He can counter their thrust. He can present the case for the administration, and he's just very, very effective. I think Walz has some of those same qualities in terms of his media presence and his ability to communicate.
He's good.
So he's very good. So I think. So I saw somewhere where there was a Venn diagram where it was moderate white guy, good communication skills, and won't alienate any aspect of the base.
Yeah.
And in that Venn diagram, I'm trying to remember who there was only. Gretchen Whitmer was in there, except she's not a moderate white guy.
She's the only one.
And I think Waltz was the one that was in the center of that Venn diagram because he was the moderate white guy, good communication skills, wouldn't alienate any part of the Democratic base. So I don't know. So I'm kind of leaning. I think that'll be a surprise pick if she picks him.
Right.
It would be a surprise pick.
But I think.
Yeah, you're right. Because the downside of Shapiro, people are, pro-Palestinian people have some issues with him.
Right.
Very much so.
That, I don't know how much that's going to weigh on. Yeah.
And if she pays attention to the political scientists, the idea that the vice presidential pick can help you win their state doesn't seem to be borne out by the evidence over the years.
Right.
So. Kelly might help bring Arizona in. That might be one of the differences. He's
popular there.
And Shapiro might bring Pennsylvania in, and those are two critical states. So that's probably going to weigh heavily. But I'm not sure the evidence supports the idea that picking somebody from that state helps you win that particular state.
Right.
So are there other things that a vice presidential candidate can bring to the ticket? That would be helpful. Campaigning.
How would they campaign? Walz would be great on that.
Debating
Bashir
J.D. Vance.
Great on that.
So I think Bashir and Waltz both bring some of those qualities in that Shapiro and Kelly lack.
Yeah. What you mentioned about the Israeli thing, there were 700,000 people that voted uncommitted in the Democratic primary. And Shapiro has been very, very strong for Israel, not very critical at all. And I think we need to bring those 700,000. They want to come in, but they need a reason to come in. And she's already made some good statements about the war. So I think Shapiro might hurt her on that. So.
Yeah, so that would be the part of the Venn diagram of alienating parts of the Democratic base.
Right.
Yes.
And so that might should give her pause. I think she needs to really seriously think about that. All the more reason why I think Waltz can step in there and do that job. So I'm going to go with Waltz. You guys both went with Kelly, right?
Yeah, with Kelly.
Did you go with Kelly, or are you still wavering?
I'm still Kelly, but I see your point. I am going, yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see. But,
Yeah.
But it certainly is, I think, a very important decision.
Yes.
And I think you can see Trump did not take that issue as seriously as he should have, I think. I think Trump could have done much, much better than J.D. Vance.
Oh.
I mean, Ohio has become a red state. Unfortunately, my home state of Ohio has become a red state. There was no chance that the Democrats are going to win Ohio anyhow. So he didn't need J.D. Vance to win Ohio. And he probably could have blunted some of the other efforts of the Democratic coalition had he picked Nikki Haley.
Yes.
And that would have assuaged a lot of the more traditional Republicans and kept them in the camp, right? He could have brought in some of those. So those independents and those disaffected Republicans, that was Nikki Haley's base, right, in the primaries. That's why she did so well in the primaries against Trump. I mean, relatively speaking, right? But a 60-40 split, that's nothing to sneeze at, right?
Absolutely.
That 40% of Republican voters, are probably not going to go to Trump in the general election with J.D. Vance. They might have if he had picked Nikki Haley. So, or he could have picked Tim Scott. If he's trying to reach out to the African-American community, which he says he's, and he's created so many black jobs. You have one of those black jobs.
Exactly.
He's created so many black jobs that, the racism in this guy is just unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
But again, if he had picked Tim Scott, that would have brought in a few more African-Americans. But now, with Kamala, the African-American community is going to be so solid. They're already solidly Democratic, but they're going to even be more solidly Democratic this time around. And I think young people. I think that was the other thing. And Kamala is going to bring, I think, a new energy to young people. And if, the Israeli-Palestinian issue is a big issue there, if she can somehow, I don't know if she can completely, resolve that issue in the minds of a lot of voters. But nonetheless, I think she has a better chance of pulling some of those folks in with her than Biden did. So I think with a number of different traditional constituencies in the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris does a great job. But Vance doesn't seem to be doing much for the Republican ticket, does he?
Much. He's doing a lot for us. He's doing a lot for the Democrats.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, he keeps putting his foot in his mouth, and yeah, he tries. He says he should be quiet more than he's speaking, because he's saying the wrong things, I think. I understand now that Sherrod it has really increased his chances in Ohio.
Okay, yeah. He's an amazing vote getter. I mean, it's become a red state, but he still has the ability. He won last time, 6 years ago. I think he'll probably win again this time. And he would have been one of my picks for, you know, if there had been a more open primary, I would definitely have thought that he should have jumped in there. But you know, again, we needed to keep that Senate seat. The Democrats need to keep that Senate seat in Ohio, and he has a chance to do that. But I like him a lot, and I think what I think he brings in is the ability to talk to working class voters and say, look, you know, it's the Democratic Party that best represents your interests. This guy talks like he's your best friend, but he's not.
No, he's with Silicon Valley.
Trump's not your friend. Trump's not with you. Trump's not going to do anything policy-wise to help working class voters. But I have the record to do that. And traditionally, the Democrats have the record to do that, going back to the New Deal and the Great Society. And you need to stick with the Democratic Party. And these culture war issues, that's just fluff. That's stuff that's not going to be really going to do much for your life, right? It's not going to help you get a job or get a raise or feed your family or get health care. You know, that's just external stuff that are distractions often from the real issues that the campaign should be centering on.
I think that she hasn't had a chance yet, but she's got to come out with a strong platform for working people.
Yes.
That has to happen. She's got to look at and she can't do what Biden did. Look at all we've done. And we've done this and this and this, which is all true. You've got to hear what they're saying and what their problems are and respond to that, no matter what you've done. So now we got a fresh chance here to say, here is the agenda that we're going to work on that's going to improve the lives of ordinary people to go out every day and work. And if she does that, she's really going to get the support of the union people. She's going to get the support of people that are in struggle. And the policies are there for her to grab. The other side has no response to working people. So I just think that this is an opportunity, and we need a turnaround.
Right, I agree. So her rally on Wednesday is in Detroit with the UAW hosting that. So that would be an opportune time for her to share, to what she's doing for working class people, and for us to hear that and to build on that momentum that she's getting to build that up. So yeah, that's exciting, because it's also the day that I guess her running mate will be at the rally with her on Wednesday.
Really?
That's what they're predicting. They're saying that on Wednesday, when she comes to Detroit on Wednesday, that they're expecting her running mate to be there with her.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Well, she's speaking Tuesday in Pennsylvania. So I'm hoping that she doesn't nominate him on Tuesday in Pennsylvania. But I think that would be the perfect occasion in Detroit.
But the UAW came out in support.
Yes, which was good.
The Harris campaign.
And the other unions are jumping in.
And Sean Fain, the president of the UAW, has been very strong. And in fact, it was interesting. The Nation magazine has some of its writers talking about the vice presidential pick. Who are they going to go for? And John Nichols, the great writer from Madison, Wisconsin, he picked Sean Fain. He said, "Let's go. You know, the Democratic Party is supposed to be we're the working class party, right? Let's do it. Let's get a vice presidential candidate that represents working people." And we know that's not going to happen. But the point was well taken. And that's what you were just saying in another vein, that the Democratic Party has stumbled badly in the last 15 to 20 years in terms of reaching out to working class people.
Yeah.
And so that they've got to change the conversation there, and they can't just point to the policies that they have enacted, which are great, but they've got to listen, as you say, listen to what are the concerns. Why would working class voters think Donald Trump is going to help their lives better than we can help their lives?
Absolutely.
And that's what they've got to address those concerns.
In the article that you sent us, and William Barber, in his new book called White Poverty, what he tries to do in there is he points out that so much of poverty is looked at as a black problem. It's a white problem. He documents in there that 40% of the American people could not afford an unexpected $300 bill. Which he's saying that shows that lower income people aren't making it in this society.
Right.
You look at the statistics in the city of Kalamazoo, we have over 40% of people in the city who can't meet their basic needs every month. They have to speak to that. They have to respond to that. There's something not working here, and we got to change it.
Exactly.
So my real candidate is Bernie Sanders for vice president.
Or William Barber.
Or William Barber.
The Reverend Barber would be great.
He would.
Yeah. So lots of opportunities here for the Democratic Party with Kamala Harris at the head of the ticket, and we're all going to be watching very eagerly about the vice presidential selection. What else do you think is going to have to be a focus in the campaign, or will become a focus in the campaign? Regina, are there other issues that you think are going to get a chance to come forward now that might not have with Biden?
Well, so, one of the big issues, and one that Trump's message is stronger as a Republican versus the Democratic Party, is around immigration.
Yes.
And that's the thing I think she's going to have to really explain or say that, or call Trump out on some of the ways that he's talking about immigration. So we were talking about his speech at the Republican National Convention and all the ways that he exaggerated or said different things and riled people up to believe that these things are true. And immigration is one where he tells a story that all these countries are sending criminals and people who are mentally ill. And if you look at some of the ads on the TV and how they paint Kamala Harris,
the borders are.
Exactly.
Which she wasn't.
Right.
No
So she's going to have to address that and get the truth out there about what really is the situation. Not that they've done it perfectly, but it's nowhere near what he's telling people to do. That has been done. So that is something that has to come forth. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that might be the most difficult issue for the Democrats to deal with. Primarily because so many of the lies that are being told by Trump seem to resonate with people. Oh, these immigrants are coming in and they're taking our jobs and they're committing crimes and they're
Exactly.
and of course none of that is true, really.
Right.
Crime rates among migrants are much lower than native-born Americans, right?
Right.
It's not true at all, and there's a ton of criminologists that have come forward and saying this is all baloney, right? This is not true. There's not a crime problem caused by immigration. That's just, you can pick out one spectacular case here or there, but overall it's not an issue, it's not a problem. And so many of the other issues they raise. So I think they've got to try to counter the distortions and the deceptions that are being told about the border. The second thing I think that they can do, and do very effectively, is to say, look, we had a bipartisan bill.
Yeah.
We worked on the border issue, and we had a bipartisan group that came together. It was a bill that a lot of Democrats didn't even like because it was so strong in terms of what the Republicans were demanding be done about the border. And did it pass?
No.
Trump? Trump told him,
no.
don't let it pass.
Trump went like this.
Right.
I want this to be a live issue for me to be a demagogue on in the campaign. And of course, that's exactly what he's doing. But the issue could have been not solved, but at least the significant advances made about it, the questions about the border and immigration could have been taken care of with a bipartisan bill had it gone through Congress, and President Biden was going to sign it. He said he would sign that bill. And the reason that bill didn't pass, why the border didn't get resolved in that sense, was because Donald Trump said no, and the Republican lackeys, who are his cult members who do whatever he tells them to do, however humiliating it might be, they reversed course and they voted down the bill they had been clamoring for. This is the bill they wanted. This is the bill that was strong on their issues, and they turned it down. So do they care about the border? No. It's obvious they don't care about the border except to use it as a political bludgeon against the Democrats, and now that's what they're trying to do. And the very first ads that came out against Kamala Harris were on attacking her on the border issue. Saying she was the border czar and she didn't do her job. No, she was not the border czar. There is no such thing. That was, because President Biden asked her to look long-term into the issue and try to figure out what are some of the larger structural causes of immigration and the issues at the border. That was her job. It wasn't to regulate the border, wasn't to do the job of Homeland Security. It's their job to police the border and to take care of things. That was not her job. She wasn't the border czar. So this is all deception on their part. And what she was really tasked to do by the president was to look at a long-term set of solutions to the problem. And so obviously that wasn't going to result in any immediate changes on border policies. So the ad is filled with lies and distortions. But again, it's one of those emotional issues that can resonate with certain voters. And so that's why, of course, the Republicans keep coming back to that issue. If we can lie about this emotional issue enough, we can damage Kamala Harris.
So there's some problems here that the immigration problem, what is the answer to that? That's a huge problem that is going to be hard to answer. The economy, what are we going to do to make a change? Just look at the issue of homelessness. I mean, homelessness, there's not enough public housing out there. There's not enough low-income housing. And it's not being addressed. And that's a huge issue. Climate change. These are tough issues that are going to have to be resolved. And I think one of the things that has to happen is that people have to be honest and say, look, everything you said about the immigration thing was true. But solving that problem, we don't really have answers right now. We're working on this. We got to figure this out. And that's a tough thing to run on. It's running on a problem. You can't run on a problem. You got to run on a solution.
A complex problem.
Boy.
Doesn't have any ready solutions. And well, and again, the biggest part of talking about border has to be climate, because we have to say, okay, why is it that so many people feel compelled to leave and try to go to someplace different? And it's not just a problem on the southern border between Mexico and the United States. It's a problem in Europe for people trying to cross the Mediterranean to get to southern Europe. It's a problem in a lot of different places. And it's a problem that is largely rooted in climate change. People are going to have to, if because of drought or storms, the inability to grow food, to have a livelihood, people are going to have to pick up and move. We know this. I mean, the literature on the climate change, one of the strongest elements is the idea that people are going to have to flee. They're going to have to move. They're going to have to relocate. And so the rich countries, the northern countries, they're going to have to come up with different solutions. It can't just be the politics of the armed lifeboat.
No.
Which is what it is right now.
Right.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly.
We're in the lifeboat. We're safe for the moment.
Right.
We're okay. You're coming, and I'm going to keep you out at gunpoint.
Right.
I'm not going to solve your problem.
Right.
And it's going to be my problem soon. But for now, I'm just going to use my gun,
Right.
and I'm going to keep you away. And that's what it is. And that's
Yes.
that's not going to be the long-term solution.
No.
This is Donald Trump's solution, right?
Right.
Build
exactly.
a wall,
Exactly.
put the
Exactly.
military down there, use the politics of the armed lifeboat to keep people away.
Right.
That's what we need to do. We just need to be tough and strong and militaristic, and that's solved. That doesn't do anything.
No.
Because the people are still going to come.
Oh, yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
going to come in ever larger numbers because they're forced to. And so dealing with the border is going to require dealing with climate change, right?
Yep.
It's going
Yep.
to require dealing with sources of political instability and violence
Right.
in the global South, which is rooted in climate change and other structural issues. But those are things that can't be solved instantly, and they can't be solved without a lot of resources being devoted to it. And they can't be solved unless we correctly identify the problem. And none of those things are happening.
No.
None
No.
of those things are happening. Not in the Democratic Party or the
No,
Republican
no.
Party.
Right. Right.
And then the resource issue, we have to come back to that, because again, whether it's the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, we're still wasting billions of dollars on the military.
Exactly.
Right?
And
Yeah.
the militarism is a huge part of the immigration problem
Right.
too. That's
It
why
is.
so many people are all over the world being driven out by the violence. And that militarism, their side is saying more military. And that's far from the solution. That's increasing the problem. So these are tough problems. These are real.
If we're going to spend $1 trillion every year on the military, which is what we're doing.
Yep.
I mean, don't just look at the Pentagon budget, as large as that is. That's over $800 billion now. But add in all the other money for nuclear weapons in the Department of Energy budget and Veterans Affairs for paying for past wars. You roll it all together and you end up with well over $1 trillion that we're spending on the military. And that's under Republican and Democratic administrations. There's really no difference. There's bipartisan support for that budget every time it comes up. You can't afford to be weak on the military, right? Especially if you're a Democrat, you can't afford to be weak on the military because you're going to get hammered on that.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So that problem festers and grows. And of course, drains resources that we need to do these other things.
Yeah.
And that's a problem that's going to be there no matter which party gets elected and put back into the White House.
So the thing for me is the Democrats have not come up with solutions to these problems. But we have a much better chance working with them than we would with the other people.
Right.
Because the other people want us to run headlong in the wrong direction.
Exactly.
The Democrats are moving, they're moving substantially in the right direction. But at least we have a shot with them to really come to grips with these problems. With the other people, we don't have any chance at all.
Yeah. And that's clear from Project 2025.
Oh,
That's out there. It tells you exactly what they want to do, what they think they could do, because they can bypass Congress on passing any of these things with executive orders or executive powers, that he can make all these changes. So that is very scary. And I think that's motivating a lot of people to see exactly what you're saying, Don. Like, oh, maybe they're not exactly what I want, but I know I don't want what they're saying they will do.
yeah.
And part of Project 2025 is increased money to the military.
Absolutely.
Dramatically increase the military. I mean, my God, they're already spending over $1 trillion a year, and yet they want to spend even more on the military. They want to create a more militarized society. And so, yeah, if Trump wins and Project 2025 is enacted, which it will be, I mean, Trump's running away from it right now.
Right.
Because it's
That's
very
just-
unpopular. When the American people find out what's in Project 2025, they say, no way, I don't want that. I don't want to live in that kind of a country.
No.
And Trump is saying, oh no, I don't have anything to do with this. And J.D. Vance, even though he wrote the foreword to the book about the project. And of course, the whole thing, the Heritage Foundation, hundreds of former Trump people have put this together. This is the blueprint for the next Trump administration. He's obviously bought into it, despite what he says, another lie on his part, right? That he doesn't support this, but he will support this, he will enact this if he gets back into office. And that's a horror story. That's part of the horror story.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not only the militarism and the militaristic border policies, but it's also the fact that it moves us closer to being a theocratic society.
Yeah.
The Christian nationalists, the white Christian nationalists dominate this Project 2025.
Yep.
And so they have other things they want to do here. It's not just a nationwide ban on abortion, but it's to turn the United States into a Christian theocracy.
Right. So on every issue that we were talking about, in immigration, in the economy, and in climate change, they're going to take us in a completely wrong direction. In the economy, it's clear that what they're saying is, poor people, you're on your own. Good luck with that. We hope you do okay. Just, work hard. And
don't scream too loudly as you do.
No. Just you can do it. Yeah. And then they want to increase the gap between ordinary people and the wealthy people in the tax proposals that they put forth, on the tax breaks for businesses. All those things lead us in the wrong direction. Absolutely wrong.
Exactly, taking away all the social safety nets, and that's very scary. You think about even here in Kalamazoo, when we're experiencing some more tornadoes and storms, and people's homes are getting destroyed, and the money has to come from somewhere to repair this.
Absolutely.
And it's not. And we were denied a federal assistance, even though we have state assistance. But I mean, that's just an example. It's going to happen. All of us will be impacted.
Right.
It's just a matter of time, and we need those social safety nets to help us. It's not just up to you to do that, to take care of those issues.
Didn't former President Trump meet with the oil companies and ask them for $1 billion?
Yeah.
And that wasn't just because they thought he had the right values. It's because he's going to say to them, now we can drill, right?
Drill. I mean, you can't imagine a worse scenario with regard to climate change than a Donald Trump administration.
Right.
Because he will totally destroy any environmental protections and regulations that are there. He tried to do that in his first term, and he succeeded largely in rolling back a lot of environmental regulations. So he's not going to do anything to protect the environment, and he's going to do the worst possible thing with regard to climate change and allowing drill, baby, drill. It's just astounding. And of course that means more storms, more destruction. And Michael Parente, or not Michael Parente, his son Christian Parente once said, climate change will make you love big government. I mean, if you're devastated by that tornado or that hurricane, you want somebody to come and help out. Right? You want FEMA to be there. You want to rebuild. You want to put your life back together. Where are the resources going to come for that? If you're affected by climate change, you're going to love big government or want government money to help you rebuild your life, and it's not going to be there.
Yeah.
And the problem is only going to be made 10 times, million times worse if we drill, baby, drill.
But it's exactly what you said before. It's the lifeboat again, because we're not going to live there. We're going to live on a hill, and we're going to have our own little playground, and we'll have our own schools, and so we don't care, right?
Yeah, it's amazing that the billionaire class and those who oppose big government think that somehow they're going to escape the ravages of climate change. I mean, they will for a while.
Short time.
In the short term, they will. But in the long run, we're all dead, as John Maynard Keynes said. But in the long run, we're all going to be dramatically affected by climate change unless we begin to really seriously address the problem. The Biden administration has been the strongest administration in dealing with climate change. Kamala Harris, I think, will continue that tradition. It's not the best. It's not exactly what we need, but it's far, far, far better than the destructive policies of the Trump administration. And so if you're concerned about the climate issue, then you have to support Kamala Harris. You have to support the Democratic Party, because that's the only chance we have to start to deal with the problem. Exactly. And that's, again, where the Democrats themselves are somewhat divided on this issue. So that's where we need the Bernie Sanders wing of the party to come in and keep pushing the more corporate wing of the Democratic Party, which I think Kamala Harris fits more, to be honest, fits more into the corporate wing of the party. But the Bernie Sanders and the AOCs of the world are going to have to be there pushing a Harris administration to stay the course on climate, to do more, to advance the Green New Deal. That's, again, our hope. But we know that Trump will completely trash all of that. I wrote an article right at the end of the first prior Trump administration, and I outlined all the things that they did to destroy the environment. Oh. And I published it in the Journal of White Collar and Corporate Crime, and there were a lot of people saying these were criminal acts. You know, this is criminal negligence, criminal recklessness to destroy the Environmental Protection Agency, to destroy environmental regulations, to allow for more pollution and more environmental devastation. And that's what we have in our future if Donald Trump is back in the White House.
It's a very crucial time because the climate change, something has to be done. Something has to be done about immigration. Something has to be done about the economy, because these things are roaring in the wrong direction. And one of those two people is going to be president. And which one do we want? I mean, we could have our ideals, who we really like to see there, but one of those two people is going to be president. Which is going to give us the best chance to solve these real problems? Exactly. I think that's the question.
Exactly. I agree. Yes. And for women too, you know, reproductive rights. Right. And that's always something that we're looking at. And we're very clear, like we've said, with the vice president nominee on the Republican side is making these statements about women and how they view women in that party. Women should be running. I mean, I just don't understand, you know, how they could support that. But yeah.
So Regena, we only have a few minutes left, but you know, I think earlier on, after the Dobbs decision, and with the demise of Roe v. Wade, there was a lot of speculation about how that was going to affect the 2024 election. We know that it's already affected a lot of other elections prior to this, since that decision, that it's mobilized a large army of voters. Where do you see that issue now fitting in? Because it's kind of gotten lost in the shuffle recently, hasn't it? Exactly.
It doesn't seem to be at the top anymore. But I still think that women need to be aware of this if we don't want our rights taken away. So it has to be brought to the forefront of how it can play out in this election. So hopefully, as we start to hear debates and all those things, those issues will be discussed. Yeah.
And do you think Kamala Harris is in a good position to mobilize a movement of women on the reproductive health rights issue?
Yes, I do. I do see that she's been consistent in her support of reproductive rights, and we believe her. Yeah. Yeah.
So if it's not at the top of women's issue, it's close to the top of, and it's something that has to be addressed.
Right. Yeah.
And he has no answer to that. No, he has no answer to that.
So what other issues, just a couple of minutes left here, but what other issue do you think is going to be a better positioned, better advanced under Kamala Harris than Joe Biden?
Your area is education.
I know.
I think something really has to be done about how much it costs for young people to go to college.
Right.
And saddling them with the equivalent of a mortgage just to go to school, that has to be addressed.
Right.
That puts them in a terrible position for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And the Project 2025, their answer was eliminate the Department of Education. Yep. We have to address that.
Exactly.
We have to. It's not fair that young people end up with that kind of a burden for the rest of their lives.
Right, yeah. And I know our party is bringing people together to talk about student loan debt and the impact of it and hearing the stories. So that is promising on the Democratic side. And then always there's gun violence, and that's another big issue too. So we'll see the discussions of that as well. Yeah, particularly, you know, what happened with Donald Trump. People are saying it's political violence, but we know it's just, when you look in the background of the person who shot him, it's the similar thing, people being bullied and having this gun culture that we have. So it hit home for them, and it's still not changing their beliefs about that. So what does that tell you? Yeah.
The other thing is young people's future. I mean, I think this is a real issue, and that's why I attend Bashir, I think, could, as a younger person, can look at that. I mean, what kind of employment is going to be available to young people? We've been saying that, okay, education's a thing, education's a thing. But there's a lot of young kids who that's not for them.
Right.
And we don't have real, I don't know, there's a movie that was just made on public television by Bill Moyer called Two Families, where he traced two families over 35 years. He started filming them 35 years ago and then came back to them 15 years later and then just came back to them now. And when you, one was black and one was white. And when you look at those families, and these people were in their late 60s or in their 70s still working. They didn't have this great education. And they went, and it was disruptive of their families. Something's got to be done to say, here's how we can make it through.
So I think young people, African Americans, women, voters, those are major constituencies that can be mobilized for Kamala Harris. Unfortunately, we're out of time right now. We're going to continue our discussion of the 2024 election on the next edition of Critical Issues. Thank you for joining us. Please come back and visit us on Critical Issues, Alternative Views.